I want to thank you for joining me today. You're here to really talk about a topic that means a lot to me, which is the health and wellness, not only for us as individuals, but how does it affect all of Wabash National? You've been working with me since, 2015, and been a part of not only helping me with my health and wellness, but when I was with Commercial Trailer Products, you really helped engage my team in a way that really helped us move forward as an organization. So as we sit here today, I'm in a new role as the CEO, and we're trying to really adopt and scale the thinking of how do we really look at health and wellness as a core part of what makes our culture great. With that said, could you maybe share with us your experiences and what you think are those critical elements that help us manage our health and wellness and the stress that we face, not only again in our personal lives, but our work lives?
So it's a great question in that, we all deal with some amount of stress in our lives, right? It's also why I believe so passionately about setting this proper foundation, if you will. Doing the little things that set the body up for success. So there are little things that you can do that will allow the body to perform even when great amounts of pressure are being put on it. We've talked in the past too about items like food, movement, and sleep, and how critical those items are to our overall energy and our work performance. So what we know is that when we put stock in those areas, we see it come out in value to the organization, both for individuals as well as for teams.
But it seems so easy,
Right.
Food, movement, sleep, but it can have really powerful impacts on people's lives. You've had so much experience touching people, again, not just at Wabash National, but in your career. Can you maybe share with us how powerful those three simple words can be?
If we take them one by one, right, you think about food and food as fuel, right? And when we think about food as fuel, we're talking more about value here. It's really no different than providing value anywhere else. It's the food choices that provide the most value that are going to do you the most good. So when we think of it that way, we're really not thinking about calories per se, but more what can I put in my body that's going to provide me energy.
So it's really about almost the quality of the food that you put in.
Absolutely.
Right. No different than the quality of the parts and pieces that we put into our trailers, right? Or our process systems components or anything else, right? So what about the movement piece? So what would be considered high quality movement in a person's life?
So, it comes down to where are we today? Americans today are sitting 8, 10, 12 hours a day. The body was never meant to thrive in that scenario. And honestly, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about human potential and thriving, okay? So if we want that, then we're gonna have to do something different.
So let's just describe that for a second. Is it X amount of minutes per day, so many days per week? What type of movement? How crazy do we have to get here to see a benefit?
So, recommendations would be 150 minutes of moderate to intense physical activity in a week. So someone like you, Brent, who works out in a gym in a workout sense, that looks like about 3 workouts a week,
right?
Okay? Someone else who isn't doing that much movement, you can break that activity up. It doesn't have to be those longer stints of exercise. I think the bigger value here is, yes, getting your workouts in like you are, but then what kind of movement are you implementing throughout your day? So how can we get up out of our chairs? How do we go have the conversation in person rather than through technology?
Well, people will think that, I've got to go to a gym or I've got to buy this piece of apparatus that goes in my house or whatever it may be. But it can be as simple as just go take a walk, to your point. And in that walk, I get the benefit of getting blood flow, I burn some calories, my brain gets to maybe take a moment to relax. I may think about some things and get some clarity. I have a chance to be reflective in what's going on in my day. There's so many more benefits than just movement for the sake of burning calories. I'm really helping change how I think about the world. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I think it takes finding what is going to work for you, right? So if you're not getting a lot of movement right now, walking is the perfect place to start. It really is. It's going to give you all the benefits that you just mentioned.
So a struggle for me, and I think most, is sleep. And here you got to get 8 hours of sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and in some cases, most of us are hoping to get 6.
Sure.
So, and not all 6, 7, or 8 hours of sleep are created equally. So give us a little bit more about that and maybe what we can do to maybe do it better.
So sleep is a priority. The body recovers itself in that period of time. So things that are important are taking time away from technology. Okay, we know that technology sends constant signals to the brain that don't allow us to come down. Things like caffeine, right? Stopping caffeine at a certain point in time of the day. For most people, that's about 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. that we need to cut that off. I think I'll take some, insight from you and wanting individuals to be great. And if we want to be great, we got to commit to something different.
When we first called you to come and help us in 2015, that was really at the heart of it. We were talking about how do we change how we lead our people and how we impact them. And we said it has to start at the top. Right, so we took the leadership team together and we said, let's go through, as you call it, the wheel of life, which is a little bit broader than eat, move, sleep. But we took them through that, and it helped us open up as a group. It helped us share what our own battles were. It took a level of openness and honesty and candor to be able to talk about it. And there would be groups that would go do things. In some cases, it was exercise, like maybe it's running a Spartan race. Maybe it's walking a 5K. So for us, it started a dialogue about how we make ourselves better and more present, both in our personal lives and then in our work lives.
That's great. And I think that, we are really connected in that sense. And so I'd ask you, you see the outcomes of that. So what kind of work product outcomes have you seen as a result of individuals investing in those areas?
Well, I think in some cases it might be, and I'll leave the names out of it for this, but there are people who have engaged in the process that may have maybe lost weight and been able to be more energetic, maybe mood swings are less, their ability to be more resilient with the stress of the day, we've seen that improve. The openness and the connections between people have improved in the process. So watching that dialogue unfold with people in a way where they're internalizing it, not only is it rewarding, right, but you begin to see them, they have more energy through the day, they're more focused, they're more energetic, they can take more risk, they can handle the inevitable negative situation that may occur in a given day, right, and bounce back from it faster. So Kristin, inevitably, when we think about our personal and our work lives, and no matter how much great food, great sleep, and movement that we get, we're still going to have issues that on a given day or week or even a greater period of time that there is stress that is affecting us. And not all stress is bad, but how would you recognize when that may be happening to you? And what are some simple ways that you can begin to manage that appropriately?
So the body is an amazing thing, okay? The body's gonna send us signals all the time, right? The real question is, are we listening, right? So things that the body will do, right? Things like frequent headaches, neck pain, back pain. These types of things are going to be signs and symptoms of stress. And that's kind of the body's way of telling us to autocorrect. And so that's your chance to change your behavior. The problem comes when we don't, okay? And so then when we don't, those signs and symptoms will escalate where we see things like frequent colds and flu, some more chronic things like diabetes, high blood pressure.
Because it's allowed to continue over time.
Correct. And basically what the body's gonna do is gonna sideline us, right? Because it basically says, I'm done.
Yeah, like you're gonna take a time out.
Yeah.
You're coming off the field for a while.
Right, exactly. I think the other part that's really important and where we see stress kind of come forward is really in our interactions with others, okay? So I kind of use this example where here we have a person and you got a lot of demands on you, okay? A lot of demands, and we're not taking care of what the body needs. And all of a sudden that circle of influence starts to get really small, right? Because we go into what we call survival mode. And so everything is about, what do I need right now, okay? So what's really cool and what works is when we invest in ourselves and give ourselves great fuel, movement, and sleep, and invest in that, that circle kind of starts to open up, right? And when we do that, we create enough energy to provide care and concern for others, which is exactly what you were sharing earlier.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it really does start to define why health and wellness is key to our cultural strategy as a company. We can't be sidelined. We can't take timeouts. We have to have maximum influence on as many people as we possibly can. We can't revert back to that survival mode on a day or a week or even a longer period of time. We want our people to be as present and as positive in what they can do to influence this organization as much as they possibly can contribute, right? For their own personal well-being, but also for the company's well-being.
I think you'll know it's working for you when you're killing it. Right? When it's all working, right? You're not out because you're sick, right? Your performance is at top notch. You're able to handle the things that are coming your way. That's when you know it's working.
Right. And stress isn't just on the negative. Stress can be on the positive, right? And we want to dwell at times maybe on when bad things happen to you, and that's the stress we talk about. But there's stress when you're growing. There's stress when you're changing. When you're taking on, new opponents, and we as an organization need to understand that that's a stress that we want, we need, but at the same time we have to manage it as an organization.
Absolutely. You talk about positive stress, right? And there isn't anything more than positive stress in this organization with its great places that it's going, right? So for you're just coming now into this role as Commander-in-Chief, the head of Wabash National.
Right.
No doubt that has been extra added stress and demands on your life, both here at work and at home. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you're managing that load and what does that look like? And then what have you seen as a result?
Obviously, there is a set of demands that come with being the CEO of a company the size and as dynamic as Wabash National is. For me, it's relying on we'll call it a toolbox that I've been working on for years. And it starts with being able to be reflective and periodically taking a time out in a day or a week or wherever that time frame is and saying, how am I doing? Like, can I health check myself and say, how's my sleep been? Have I been eating properly? Maybe I've got to exercise more than where I'm at. Maybe I've skipped some because I've been traveling or doing whatever, and I've got to recondition and reprioritize. And when I feel those things starting to occur, I have to course correct, right? Because the way I look at it is I don't get to take a time out. There's too many people counting on me, both internal to the company and external to the company. I have to be present. And I also have a family that I have to be present for too. And it is hard at times to think about how it all fits together. And I think that's why as you manage your health and wellness, it's an active process. Whether we like it or not, we're all getting older. So what worked when we were 20 doesn't quite work when we're 30, gets a little harder when we're 40, and when you're knocking on the door of 50, you really have to be on your game to try to manage that aspect of your life, right? So everybody's different in what it takes to be successful in this area of your life.
So Brent, you've talked a lot with us about being corporate athletes. Can you share in a little bit more detail, what does that mean to you and how do we create more corporate athletes here?
Right. So it's not a term that I made up on my own. So, but it is something that I heard and picked up on probably 20 some years ago, previous employer. And the way that term came about is that when you think about professional athletes, it's a 24-hour process, right? They are constantly looking at how they get better, how they learn, managing every aspect of their physical life so that they can be at their peak whenever they're called upon to play. If you think about in a corporate world, we don't get to take a day off between games. right? We're playing every day. And arguably there's some of us that are 24/7, week in and week out. So that's what I think when I use the term corporate athlete.
That's great feedback, and you put a lot into what it means to be a corporate athlete. If you're somebody who's just trying to get started, where would you suggest that they might get started?
Sure. Well, I think whether you're entry level into a company or you've been with them for 30 years and maybe you're at a higher level position, I think you can always come back to, I personally think that the food aspect to it is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. And when we talk about fitness and overall health, I mean, I would say that's 70-80% of the equation to start with, and that's what I found for me. And I think for me, the next one is the sleep piece. If you're not sleeping, to think that then you're going to exercise well and have the energy and the motivation to do it, it's just not going to happen. So if I can eat well, if I can begin to get increasing levels of sleep, then I can begin to think about how do I move well and do it in a smart way.
Brent, have you always been this way and being able to be reflective in that sense? Or have you always done it this way? Or was there a time where this was a little harder for you?
Yeah, there was. And there was a time in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, where I had risen through companies pretty fast. I had taken on a corporate role at another company. I was traveling 60% of the time. I had been married just a handful of years. I had 2 young children, new house, and I was giving up so much of myself to manage all those different new parts of my life, that things like what I was eating. First off, it was fast food. It was a run and gun food mentality, like just get me from point A to point B. It was about calories, not about the what or the quality. Sleep, I'm not sure I slept for about 5 years, it felt like, and compounded by the fact that I was flipping time zones. I was on planes. I had the proverbial travel dinners on a regular basis, and as a result, I had issues, whether it be cholesterol, high blood pressure, weight, really began to affect me personally. And then you have that moment of clarity where you go, this isn't working anymore. And not only am I not at my best, I'm running the risk of not being present, period, for my family. And so at that point when I really began to focus on me, and the way I kind of phrase it, and people may not like this, but sometimes you got to be a little selfish for yourself, right? Ultimately, so you're there for others.
We could argue that your time now is even more highly stressful, right? With more demands on you, more travel, more of what you all just shared with us. Mm-hmm. How can you compare now to how you live to what you were doing then, and how does that feel physically, mentally, emotionally?
Yeah, so we're talking like 20 years ago, and just the energy level from where I'm at today than what I was even in my 30s is, I would say, it feels like an order of magnitude better at this moment in time. My wife and I talk every week about what are we eating, what are we doing. Let's make sure we buy less of this and more of that, and how we run our lives, and obviously it affects our children as well. I literally, I'm the Fitbit person, so I know how much I sleep every day, right? I know what my resting heart rate is every morning, right? And so am I a little bit more on the obsessive side? Yeah, I am, because it is so much. My family and I, it is just our lifestyle now. It's just what we do.
Thanks so much for sharing some of your background. I think, you do a lot of these things well, but it's important for people to know that the care and concern for others, what they're going through.
Right.
You've been there.
Right.
And so there is another way, and I think we see that on the other side. Right. And so I think that's what today is about.
And it's not, and just to reiterate, we're talking about maybe, how it affects me, but it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're going through in your life. The tools are universal. It works for everybody. And that's what's so interesting and so powerful about the conversation. So I thank you for spending time with me and talking about this and helping me and Wabash have this conversation with our people.
Absolutely.
Thank you.